overloaded for so long talking about viruses, talking about vaccines and whatnot. But it is respiratory virus season. We're in it, just about in it, the worst of it. It was a tough one last fall, of course, with the kids back in school and a variety of reasons. And for parents, looking at another year when it might be pretty tough in the fall. We're talking about flu, we're talking about COVID, we're talking about RSV. And then, kids have colds all the time too, and you're trying to figure out what's what out there. A lot of people, it seems, in the last little bit, coming down with COVID again. A bit of a thing out there. So we want to touch base with Raywat Deonandan, epidemiologist at the University of Ottawa. Good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
Appreciate you coming on with us, as you've done many times over the last couple of years. Always appreciate that. What is the latest on the virus situation so far this fall?
Well, as you mentioned, we're looking down the barrel of three main viruses affecting respiratory infection season. It's amazing that's a thing now, respiratory infection season, right? So as you mentioned, RSV, flu, and COVID. Right now, RSV hasn't really picked up yet in the Ottawa region, looking at a 2.1% positivity rate, and the flu is barely noticeable so far. But we're knee deep in COVID. So COVID right now is the culprit driving much of the activity in the hospitals. But we expect flu and RSV to be picking up pretty soon.
So what's going on there? Why are we seeing this resurgence of COVID right now?
Well, part of it is the wave-like behavior of the disease. The other part is new variants. So a recent study came out suggesting that the reason that vaccine have waned in their effectiveness has little to do with the actual vaccine immunity waning, has more to do with the fact that the new variants are just different enough to escape a lot of our immunity. So the fact that we keep on producing more variants means that we keep having to adapt to the new scenario. That's why we have a new vaccine coming out, the new monovalent, which is more closely targeted to these circulating strains. So I encourage people to consider getting it when it becomes available.
Are people considering getting it? Are we seeing an uptake on the vaccines? As I prefaced, it seems to be a tough conversation to have because immediately people say, oh, don't want to talk about it. But more and more, we're hearing, our friends, our coworkers here going down with COVID. Maybe you're starting to think about it again. Maybe I do need to get vaccinated.
Right. So the new monovalent vaccine is not yet available in Ontario. We expect probably end of October for high-risk groups and maybe a couple months after that for everybody else. So it's not surprising that people aren't getting it yet. The bivalent vaccine, which was available last year, the uptake was very, very small. So I expect the uptake for this one to be small as well, which is unfortunate because the new vaccine looks pretty good. It looks like it's pretty closely matched to the circulating strains, not perfectly, but well matched, so that it will offer protection against infection to some degree and very good protection against the worst outcomes.
Is it somewhat good news that, COVID is on the rise again, that the other two seem to be a little bit more in control this fall? We talked about that triple whammy a whole lot last year and what that did to ERs and whatnot, and certainly the parent stress levels. We have a little bit of silver lining there so far anyway.
It's way too early to say. So last year, the RSV wave started around the end of October, as did the flu season. So it's too early to say. There is every expectation we're going to see a triple whammy again. Maybe not as bad as last year. Maybe as bad as last year. The other confounding effect is that the hospitals are weaker now than ever before due to human resources constraints and due to the fact that our healthcare workers are also sick. So that's part of the conversation that we often leave out, is that our healthcare system is getting weaker by the day. And so even if the burden of respiratory illness is less than last year, which it might be or might not be, our ability to deal with it has been compromised.
So as far as what we should be doing now in terms of getting our shots and getting vaccinated, so for those who are most at risk, you're saying maybe late October for the new vaccine. The rest of us have to wait. Should we be thinking about a flu shot ahead of time? Most of us, October?
100%.
Yeah.
And that will be available end of October as well. I understand the COVID vaccine makes some people uneasy. We can talk about that. The flu vaccine should not. It's so well tolerated and so well understood. And the flu is a known quantity. It's quite a beast. We should avoid getting it and avoid giving it to others. That's the obvious thing to do, get vaccinated. The other obvious thing to do is if you are sick or have a sick child, try to keep them at home. Try to stay home from work if you have that ability. That's a simple thing we can all do. We should definitely be wearing masks in healthcare settings, without question. And we should be considering wearing masks in all public indoor settings, at least until respiratory season is over.
All right, Raywat, thank you very much. Appreciate your time as always.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Raywat Deonandan, epidemiologist at the University of...